by one of the former president's co-defendants, Michael Roman, who alleged that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis had a relationship with the lead special prosecutor on the case, Nathan Wade. That sent this Fulton County case into a tailspin earlier this year. We had several days long hearing talking about the district attorney's relationship with Wade. They did tell the court that they did have a relationship, but that it didn't have any impact on the case. Now, these co-defendants were upset about this relationship, saying that the district attorney was benefiting financially from the case because her and Nathan Wade were going on trips to California and other places. Now, ultimately, before this case got sent to the appeals court about middle of this year, around spring, early summer, the judge in this case, Judge Scott McAfee, the Superior Court judge, had said that Fani Willis could stay on the case only if Nathan Wade resigned, which he did hours later. After that, though, the former president and several of those co-defendants, they appealed this to the Georgia Court of Appeals. It has been in limbo for several months as the appeals court tries to figure out what they were going to do here. Now, earlier this month, Vlad, you might remember, we were supposed to have oral arguments in front of the appeals court on this case, asking so that both sides could present how they felt about this and why the district attorney's office feels that they could stay on the case, and while the defendants said that the Fani Willis should be removed from it. The appeals court, at a last-minute effort, canceled that hearing earlier this month and had a lot of people questioning just what would happen next. And this morning, as you said, Vlad, we just got that 30-page order saying that the district attorney's office cannot continue prosecuting this case.
All right, Jared Eggleston for us in Madison, Wisconsin. Jared, you're covering another story, but you were on this story in Georgia for many, many weeks, and you're bringing us the breaking news this morning. We appreciate you, as always, my friend. Get warm. Let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. She joins me now to break down Jared's reporting. So Jessica, help us understand, what was the Court of Appeals? What were they looking at, and ultimately, how did they come about with this decision? Because originally, it was what we understood was that if Nathan Wade was removed from the entirety of this case, which he did, he resigned and he recused himself from it, then she could continue to stay on. What happened?
That's exactly what they were considering, was that trial court decision that the appearance of impropriety could be cured by Nathan Wade stepping aside. Was that correct? And you're exactly right, Vlad, to situate us in terms of what was the Court of Appeals doing. And in this 31-page ruling, they said very clearly, our job is just to look at what the trial court did and determine whether or not that was correct under the law. They acknowledged that both sides had diametrically opposed views of when Fani Willis would be required to step down under Georgia law, whether it would be automatic disqualification or whether, as she argued, there's no disqualification under Georgia law based on the appearance of impropriety. Let's get to the punchline here, which is the problem the Georgia Court of Appeals had with the trial court was that they said it cured any questions of appearance of impropriety moving forward after Nathan Wade stepped down, but it didn't cure those questions before. The questions that plagued Fani Willis in terms of who to prosecute, in terms of which charges to bring, they said it wasn't a broad enough remedy, meaning Nathan Wade stepping down was not enough to cure the appearance of impropriety issue. Fani Willis herself had to be disqualified as well. The court, last thing, acknowledged that this is rare. Under Georgia law, the appearance of impropriety alone generally does not give rise to the need to step down and to recuse. But in this case, they said it is that rare instance.
So the other interesting aspect to this, Jessica, is that they have not chosen, perhaps it wasn't under their purview, but to toss the case out completely.
That's right. And that was not, the way you asked that question, again, is right. That was not their purview. Their purview was looking at what the trial court said with respect to Fani Willis and the order saying if Nathan Wade steps down, that's enough. Now, what we know is that the case, or what we understand from reporting months ago, is that Fani Willis having to step down does not necessarily mean that the case itself unravels. But now we have to overlay this question about Fani Willis and her appearances of impropriety on the reality of the political calendar. And I think it is extremely unlikely that anything other than a full pause on this case occurs for the next 4 years.
So so my question to you was, if there is a pause on this case, it doesn't completely go away, but during the president-elect's terms, this case perhaps, we're speculating, but the Trump people can make the case that there was impropriety, which is why Fani Willis has been removed. And so there should be at least a pause in this case. I'm sure they're going to argue that the case should be thrown out completely, because they're going to say that Fani Willis was tainted from the jump, and the only reason she was going after the president-elect was for political reasons. But that's a possibility.
Well, and I actually want to expand on that a little bit, in the sense of the Trump team will absolutely say this case needs to be trashed, that the only real remedy here is a complete dismissal, but for two reasons. One is the Fani Willis issue, but the other is the fact that we would be moving forward with a state criminal case against a sitting president of the United States. So there are really two tracks to their argument of stop this case. One is the problems with the prosecutor who decided to bring the case, who to charge, which charges to bring. The other is this idea of, does a state even have the power to prosecute a sitting president of the United States? And that's where I think we most strongly see the not just possibility, but probability that nothing happens in this case, if anything ever happens, for at least the duration of this presidential administration.
But Jessica, just before we go on to talk with Caitlin Huey-Burns for the political aspect of the story, so if a state is not able to charge or prosecute, I should say, a sitting president of the United States, if Fani Willis was found to not have behaved improperly, would this case would we still see a pause?
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. I think that is right, that there are two separate issues here. There's the Fani Willis issue. That's the one we're talking about this morning. The Court of Appeals saying that she needs to be removed, that that's the only cure based on the conflict of interest, based on the appearance of impropriety. And that this is a decision that would have occurred regardless of the outcome of the presidential election. Separately, because President Trump did win the election, because he is going to be the sitting president again, the Trump team is saying this case cannot move forward. And they're making arguments, Vlad, dealing with the power of states to reach up and prosecute the chief executive, saying that actually would constitutionally violate the president's ability to, quote, take care to faithfully execute the laws. And that is a separate track that is not related to Fani Willis.
Fascinating. All right, Jessica, stand by. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who's joining us now live from West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Caitlin, my guess is that they are celebrating there in Mar-a-Lago this morning.
That's a pretty good guess, Vlad. We haven't officially heard from the Trump team their reaction to this, but we can say without a doubt that this is a huge win for the Trump team. Because remember, this was the last remaining criminal case against Donald Trump. Since his election, those two federal cases have wound down. The prosecution, the sentencing in that New York hush money case has been delayed until after Trump takes office. And Jessica just laid out incredibly well all of the legal dynamics here. But politically speaking, this is a victory for Trump. The big question remaining is, and we don't know this yet, but we can guess that they want to have this thrown out entirely. And so, as you were just discussing what this means in terms of that, having the case completely thrown out, because we've also seen in the hush money case that Trump's team wanted that case thrown out, even though sentencing was delayed until after his term ends. But this is a huge victory for Trump. Remember, they had brought this to light in the first place when it comes to Fani Willis. Trump and several members of his orbit were indicted as co-conspirators in this case at the time as well. And so as we're waiting for a statement from the Trump team, there's no question they take this as a big political victory.
Yeah, indeed. Caitlin Huey-Burns for us this morning. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate it. Let's quickly go back to Jared Eggleston in Madison, Wisconsin, who's got some more details for us on the breaking news that the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, has been removed from that election interference case in Georgia regarding the president-elect. Jared, what can you tell us?
And Vlad, a lot of people are now asking what's next for Fani Willis. At this point, she's not going to leave office. She actually just handedly won re-election back in November. So she'll be here for another 4 years prosecuting cases unless obviously she decides to leave her post there. But this is not a good look for her office. This was one of the big cases that her office was hanging her hat on. Another case that they were hanging their hat on, a RICO case involving Young Thug and several other defendants. That case has also been kind of in limbo over the last few months. So this is definitely not a good day for the DA's office. And so far, we have not heard any comment from them, Vlad. Typically, they don't comment on things, but we are reaching out to them and we'll, of course, bring you any updates if they do decide to issue a statement on it.
All right, we'll check in with you if that should happen. Jared Eggleston for us in Madison, Wisconsin. Jessica Levinson, who came into us from California. We appreciate it. I know it's early there, Jess. And, of course, Caitlin Huey-Burns, always on duty in West Palm Beach. We appreciate all of you. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at Capitol Hill now, where lawmakers are running out of time to reach an agreement to keep the lights on after demands from President-elect Trump and his allies like Elon Musk effectively killed a bipartisan stopgap funding bill. Let's bring in CBS News political reporter Taurine Small, who's joining me now from the Hill to talk more about this. So what are the chances of averting a shutdown looking like at this point, Taurine?
Yeah, Vlad, as we approach the 11th hour here on Capitol Hill, things are looking pretty bleak, to put it pretty bluntly. I mean, not only is Speaker Johnson facing the ire from Democrats for reneging on an agreement that they have previously reached, he's also looking at backlash from Republicans. Many in the conference were unhappy with, but some willing to hold their nose to vote for the CR that was previously negotiated in order to avoid a government shutdown. A lot now are coming out saying that they don't